Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of the Avid Discussers podcast. And we hope you enjoyed the pilot episode. So let's continue this. I'm your host, Joshua Rey, and I'm joined, as always, by our good friend, Ty Pardy. Ty, how are you doing?
Doing great. How about yourself again?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Um, things have been pretty good for me this week. The podcast is starting to grow. People are starting to listen, and I hope we'll get more listeners.
I'd say this week I got bored with all this weather that just happened again and just started going at these we'll just say Benning Bros on Twitter.
Oh, of course.
Just can't stop. I can't stop. Like
Yeah.
there's just you realize how divided this fan base is at this point, and you got we had that Beagle conversation. Don't worry, we'll get to that later.
Yeah,
And
Ty has a big
and
Beagle rant coming.
don't worry, we got that. And for Tanev, obviously for Tanen's contract, at least some comparables are being brought up about that. So we'll get into that later. But I've been busy in that aspect.
All right, let's jump into the show. Let's start with our predictions for the Eastern Conference qualifying round. So let's start off with the most hated team in the East, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Ty, you got the numbers. Take it away.
Okay, from this series, I see Toronto as having a huge advantage from an offensive perspective, let's say. So you've got, when you look at even strength wins above replacement, they were fourth compared to Columbus, who was 27th. There's also a very sizable advantage in the power play, obviously, with Toronto being the 8th power play and Columbus being 27th. When you look at their underlying numbers like goals for, so Toronto's 8th in goals for and 4th in expected goals for. So realistically, they're a little bit unlucky almost there. They should have scored a little bit more. Columbus at 28th in goals for and 27th at expected goals for, so relatively even. But Toronto is their shooting percentages were about league average. Like there's nothing, they're not getting unlucky, but they're not getting super lucky either. Looking at their defense, though, it's basically the same matchup for offense, though. Like Columbus is probably anywhere between third and fifth, I'd say, on their defense. They rank third in wins above replacement for even strength defense and third in the penalty kill. Toronto is 20th at even strength and wins above replacement on even strength and 10th on the penalty kill. So, but when you look at their underlying numbers in terms of goals for and expected goals for, they were 27th in goals against and they're 18th in expected goals against. So I think that they had a little bit of a problem with the goaltending. It wasn't as strong as it normally is, so that caused a little bit more in the goals against instead of their expected goals against. Columbus is just a powerhouse, really, and they've got above average goaltending and probably a third anywhere between the 3 and 5 range for their defense. Looking at the possession numbers, they're about even, when looking at them as a total. So Columbus obviously isn't as good as a possession team as Toronto is, but Toronto is going to hammer a bunch of shots. So realistically, they're going to allow a bunch of shots, but they're going to outshoot their opponents because they're going to shoot so much. Going back to my quality start stats, which it measures how many let's see how I can explain this. So say that each team has an amount of expected goals for, so the probability that the puck should have gone in. It measures how many times you basically outplayed an opponent. So Columbus was 7th in the entire league at 60% that they should have won. And Toronto was at 54%, so that's 10th in the league. So because of Columbus's defense, it's tough to tell this series, but because Columbus was hurt so much of the year, that they're getting a little more healthy. You get Seth Jones, Atkinson back. They could give Toronto the run for their money, but the defense, it's a tough one. I think this could go to 5 games, but I'm probably going to have to lean with Columbus here in 5. Toronto, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't really have to be an analytics guy to know that Toronto has the better forward core than Columbus. Because Toronto, they got Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander, but can they show up in the playoffs? Like, for example, Matthews, he has this tendency to disappear in the playoffs, as we've seen in the past. But we all know that Toronto's defense, again, you don't have to be an analytics guy, is not as good. Morgan Riley, by far the best defenseman. Tyson Barrie hasn't been what they expected him to be. And yeah, Leafs fans go off on Cody Ceci all day. But I think the Leafs are, you could say they are the better team on paper, but don't underestimate the Columbus Blue Jackets. Sure, they lost Artemi Panarin, Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel, and Sergei Bobrovsky to free agency in the summer, but this what's his face, Elvis Merzlinga's guy, he's been solid all year, and I think he's a rookie too. So Columbus has got the goaltending. On defense, they aren't bad, but they're gonna get better with Seth Jones coming back. Jones and Werenski, two of my favorite players from Columbus. They're gonna be counted on to shut down the Leafs offense, but their forward core, the numbers will tell you it's bad. And just looking at the depth chart right now, other than Nyquist, Dubois, there's nothing too much to be excited about. But the factors for each team, actually, the worries for each team is the Leafs is their defense, and also can Frederick Anderson stop the playoff woes, and will Matthews not disappear in the playoffs again? And for Columbus, they got to worry about how their forward core stacks up against the Leafs. So this series, it could go either way, and I expect the series to go back and forth, and it will go 5, but I'm going to predict the Leafs, as much as I hate to say this, the Leafs will advance in 5.
And I'm looking back at this, and I see, and here's my argument that I think I'm going to come to the conclusion that I'm probably going to have to pick Toronto in 5. And I say this because you've got, I think, so both of the teams, obviously, the weakness for Columbus is going to be their offense. Weakness for the Leafs is going to be their defense. I think that Columbus's offense is much worse of a weakness than the Leafs' defense is altogether.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been saying, because I think Columbus had their share of scoring problems this year, and it's going to hurt them if they dry up in the playoffs. And we all know about the Leafs defense. There's no Jake Gardiner this year, thankfully, for Leafs fans, but I guess the new whipping boy would be Cody Ceci or even Tyson Barrie. So the Leafs, they gotta be, their offense can't completely cover up their shaky defense. But because of how poor Columbus' offense is, this series will go to Toronto in 5.
I don't see any other way. But like the other thing is like, you got to look at this though. Like, you know, everybody talks about like Toronto just drying up in the playoffs, but like they pretty much brought Boston to 7 2 years in a row, and Boston's one of the better teams in like the last like 5 years or so. I didn't make the argument for the decade really, and that goes to show like they can play in the playoffs. You bring Boston, who just went to the Cup last year, you bring them to 7 again. Toronto, you know, they fought. I think Toronto, outside of the Blues, obviously, fought Boston as hard as any team in the playoffs out of the East. So I think there's my argument that, you know, Toronto can still play in the playoffs. And for your argument of toughness, they brought Kyle Clifford in. I think there's, you know, quote, tough as they've ever been in a long time. So, but I see that I think they can outscore their defensive problems, and Columbus can't score enough to sustain a game against them, really.
So we both are going to predict Leafs in 5.
We are.
Yep. And let's move on to the other Eastern Canadian team. The Montreal Canadiens, they'll be playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. Ty, take it away.
This matchup is tougher to look at on paper because I look at it as Pittsburgh was hurt so much of the year that they never really had, you know, a healthy lineup in quotes there together, that They traded for Zucker, because they didn't think obviously to get Gensel back for the playoffs. But you take a bunch of time away, and then all of a sudden, this top six is probably just as good as anybody in the entire league. You've got Rust. Rust, he's really performed as a second line winger, and maybe even arguably first this year, to a degree. And then anybody really you put on the Crosby line with Zucker. I'm assuming Zucker's going to play there again. So whoever it is, that top six is really just an elite lineup. You look at them from an offensive standpoint, wins above replacement. Pittsburgh was 8th, and Montreal was 12th. So obviously, even Pittsburgh, through all their injury woes, still better offense than Montreal. And there was a big discrepancy in the power play, I would say, because Montreal just didn't have the star power outside that Weber slap shot to really score in the power play. Obviously, you got guys like Gallagher, but they just didn't have they weren't performing very well in the power play. We'll say that in the end. Pittsburgh was 15th. Montreal's 23rd. Goals for per 60. You've got so that's that's other goals that are actually scored compared to expected goals. Pittsburgh was 15th. Montreal was 17th. Where you look at that, though, is Pittsburgh was 19th in expected goals for versus Montreal, where they were 3rd in the league in expected goals for. So expected goals for, that basically tries to predict how many goals you should score per game based on your shot quality and shot quantity. So realistically, Montreal was really unlucky, and Pittsburgh got a little bit more lucky. They were 7th in their shooting percentage above expected, so that's their expected shooting percentage versus what they actually had, and Montreal was 22nd. So there's a big discrepancy there in terms of which teams are getting more lucky. Defense, they were both relatively, the same, with 7th and 8th in wins per replacement. Penalty kill goes to Pittsburgh by, quite a decent margin. 11th in the league compared to Montreal's 25th. Looking at the goals against per numbers, 13th for Montreal, Pittsburgh is 14th. Expected goals goes to Pittsburgh, 9th versus 11th. And their goaltending was relatively even, I would say, between, they were 23rd and 27th, with Montreal being 23rd. Here's where it gets interesting, though, too, is the possession numbers were expected goals for percentage. So your percentage of how many goals you should have scored against how many you should have let in. Montreal was 3rd, Pittsburgh was 9th. Shot share percentage, or Corsi, was 2nd in the league for Montreal, 12th for Pittsburgh. Quality start percentage, 70% for Montreal, 52% for Pittsburgh at 11th. And I'd probably say Price obviously has the goaltending matchup. So does Pittsburgh getting healthy balance out their lineup, or is Montreal going to regress to the mean and, become the team that they're supposed to be? That's a big question. Obviously, I think I'm probably going to have to go with Pittsburgh in 4, because Price is as overrated as anybody in the league, in my opinion. And I don't see how Montreal really has the star power to compete with this top 6 of Pittsburgh. And their defensive core of Pittsburgh is, as underrated as anybody in the league, with guys like Marino.
Yeah, I expect this to be a short series, but not a sweep. But as you mentioned, Pittsburgh's top 6 is very good. And they might get someone like Jake Gensel back, which will make it even better. They traded for Zucker, and there's not much to say about Crosby and Malkin, because you know what they're capable of. Brian Rust, a very good staple on the second line, and Connor Sheary, also, he's been good in the top 6 as well. And their defense, Pittsburgh's defense it's good, but I think they can get some more help with so I'm gonna say, Pittsburgh's defense it's good. Chris Letang is still Chris Letang. Brian Dumoulin, I think, is pretty underrated, and so is John Marino. And for Montreal, they don't, as you mentioned, they don't really have that star power, other than, I guess, the closest thing they have to a star on their forward core, probably Brendan Gallagher, but he's not good enough to lead the top six. And their power play, from what I've heard, it's not that very good, other than Shea Weber and his slap shot. And Carey Price, he's not the Carey Price from 2014 per se, but he, I don't think he's enough to lead the Habs past the Penguins. And it's because the Penguins, they got the depth on offense and defense. Sure, Matt Murray may let in a bad goal or two, but he's led them to a cup. And for Montreal, the defense of Sherratt, Weber, Kulak, Petrie, I don't think it's that great. And their forward core, Drouin, Deneau, Armia, Houdon, Domi, and Gallagher, they lead the top six. It's just meh. And they're going to be way outclassed by the Pittsburgh's top six. So I'm going with Pittsburgh in 4. Montreal and Price, they'll probably steal a game, but it's not going to be enough for them to handle Pittsburgh.
And I'd say like that top line, they're as good as anybody in the league. I think that top line can compete with Pittsburgh in any aspect of the game. I'd say that 61.8 expected goals for percentage. So they were a possession monster in a lot of aspects. Good defensively, not perfect, but they did pretty much everything you asked them to do. Let me look at this. I mean, the other thing is their bottom 6. I'd probably say, still Pittsburgh, has a decent advantage there.
I agree.
But I don't see how Price is he's not as good as he used to be, and everybody still overrates him. But Montreal was that team that they were analytically really good, but they never performed really well. So can we expect them to perform at the level we thought they're, expect them to perform? Or, are they going to relatively just get by with, how they performed for the most of the season?
Yeah, Price, he's, as we've mentioned, not as good as he used to be. And he, though we mentioned that, but he still covers up a lot of the Habs' problems, and he does steal them games. But again, it's not going to be good enough against this Pittsburgh team. So as a result, they're going to go down in 4 for me.
I'd argue Price isn't even that good anymore. I'd say he's a bottom 10 goalie in the league. I don't even think he's covering any of the problems up, but we could save that debate for another day.
Yep. Sure. So what's your prediction?
I'm going to go Pittsburgh in 4. I don't see how Montreal really. And the thing is their top line can fight with Pittsburgh in a lot of aspects. But again, it's the same thing when we're looking at the Canucks. Is your top line is going to be an advantage everywhere else, but when that bottom 6 is on the ice, even the second line for that matter, Pittsburgh's pretty much going to have an advantage in a lot of the aspects of the game.
All right. So let's move on to the next series. It's the New York Islanders and the Florida Panthers. Take it away.
So this one is, the Islanders are the weird team in the league. There's just nothing that backs up what they're doing in a sense. They're probably I'd say they're bottom 10 offense, really, if you think about it. And Florida, so when we look at it from a wins above replacement standpoint, Islanders were 22nd for even strength offense. Florida was 10th. Islanders were 26th ranked power play. Florida was 14th. We look at goals for. Florida Panthers were 4th. Islanders were 25th. But then expected goals for, the Islanders were 16th versus the Panthers at 21. So realistically, I look at the offense as Florida, had a really good shooting percentage compared to what they were supposed to have. So I'd say they were pretty damn lucky if you look at the numbers that way. And Islanders were one of the most unlucky teams. They didn't generate a lot of offense, but they should have scored a lot more than they actually did. When I look at the defense, that's where I think Florida's, really not good at all, is their defensive side of the puck. That they're 25th in even strength wins by replacement. Islanders are 14th. Their PK was absolutely atrocious, 29th in the league versus the Islanders at 8th. Islanders were 8th in goals against, but 16th in expected goals against. And then Florida was 28th in goals against and 21st in expected goals against. Both of them really didn't have very good goaltending at all. One of my main goaltending stats is expected saves, just how many saves they make above how many they're supposed to make. So saves above expected. So the Islanders goaltending duo was 26th in the league versus Florida at 24th. So both bottom 10 teams there. Look at the possession. Both are really just atrocious possession teams. It's almost like both of these teams shouldn't be in the playoffs, but I guess, they get a play in series to see who makes it. I mean, I'm going to have to go with Florida because Florida's offense is, legit good compared to, everything else. Looking at it is really terrible for both teams. And the other thing is, I don't think the Islanders really have that good of a defense to stop that top line with Florida with Barkov on it. And obviously getting rid of Trocheck hurts the Panthers, but I think they have enough to get past the Islanders here. But, we've seen this Islanders team beat Pittsburgh last year, I think it was. And, that never made sense at all. And who's no make of that. But, looking at the numbers here, I'm going to have to go with Florida and 4.
Okay, yeah, this is a strange matchup. And the Islanders are a weird team. As you said, they're just there, just in the middle. But I do like their first line of Anders Lee, Matt Barzal, and Jordan Eberle. But is it enough? Can it to be with the Florida Panthers top 6? Vetrano, Barkov, Dadonov, Hoffman, Halla, and Huberdeau. And I think Florida looks good on the forward side, but on defense, as you mentioned, it's not that very good. And Sergei Bobrovsky hasn't lived up to the massive contract the Panthers signed him to last summer, but I think he could turn it up a notch in the playoffs. And he's a much better goaltender than Semyon Varlamov and Thomas Greiss. And they haven't been a good duo for the Islanders. And the Islanders' defense, it isn't bad, but could be better. And I think these teams are quite even on paper. And I think that I'm going to go with Florida in 5 because I think they got the better defense, and I think Bobrovsky could turn it up a notch in the playoffs.
I'm looking at this. I think I don't even think I'd start Bobrovsky, but that's just me as a coach there. They had 2 other better goaltenders that were really, better than him in a lot of aspects. Drider, I think it is Dreiger or whatever it is.
Dredger.
What I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So he was their best goalie by a decent margin. He didn't play a lot in the season, but only 12 games or something. But he was their best goalie. But if I'm looking at it from an analytics standpoint, he was totally their best goalie. And then other one I want to ask you obviously is Varlamov versus Greiss, because there's another guy. They pretty much split the games almost evenly. I think they lean with Varlamov because he's a better goalie, but you could really make an argument for both guys because I think that was another aspect of the Islanders, that they don't have an elite goaltender either, that it doesn't make sense how they're in this position.
Yeah, that's true. Varlamov is by far better than Greiss, but together against Bobrovsky and Dredger, I'm going to go with Florida because they haven't been good, but they haven't been bad either. So mainly because of goaltending, I would take Florida in 5.
I'd almost even go 4th. Varlamov was 24th, saves above expected. That's Uzi Saros, Robin Leonard type territory. So he's not not a bad goalie. He's still a low end starter, I would say. But I almost see Florida pushing this in 4, that they're just so much of a better team. But it's like the Islanders are just one of those weird teams. Like they, like they get points, they win a lot of games, but it almost seems like. But then like you think, oh, they're just getting lucky, but like the numbers would like suggest that they aren't getting like lucky at all.
Yeah. Again, 4-5 for me. And let's move on to the last series. It's the New York Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes. I take it away.
This is the one that I could probably realistically see a sweep in. You go with Islanders have the offense to compete with the Carolina Hurricanes. I'd say Carolina was 14th in wins per replacement for their offense, and then their power play was just as elite as anybody. 7th in the league. Islanders are right there with them, 10th in even strength offense and 5th on the power play. Like underlying numbers, goals for Rangers were 9th. Carolina was 11th, but here's where I say that Carolina was 2nd in the league in expected goals for. So we look at that as Carolina was getting really unlucky this season, that they should have been a lot better than a lot of teams, in the power rankings or anywhere you see them. They should have been a lot better than they actually performed on the ice. Our Rangers were 9th in expected goals for and 9th in goals for. So they're relatively around where you'd expect them. They weren't getting too lucky, weren't getting too unlucky, but I look at the numbers and I see like Carolina's, adjusted shooting percentage for, where it should have been. They were 23rd in the league. They were getting really unlucky. Both of these teams are like very similar molds to each other, though, in the sense that they're really good offensively and just terrible defensively. But I'd still have to really lean with Carolina because the Rangers' defense is like Detroit Red Wings level. 31st in even strength wins per replacement for defense, 31st in the penalty kill, 22nd goals against, and 30th expected goals against. The only thing that really kept them afloat was, they had some really good goaltending from Georgiev, I think it is. Sorry, I can't pronounce these names correctly. Carolina was 27th even strength defense, 14th in the penalty kill, 18th on goals against, 21st in expected goals against. And they had better goaltending than you'd expect them to normally have. 12th in adjusted or saves above expected. So, but here's where I see this as Carolina's way better possession wise. You've got 27th expected goals for the Rangers, 28th in their Corsi, so that's your shot attempts. And then Carolina was 7th in expected goals for and 3rd in your shot attempts for Corsi. And, my favorite stat between when I'm looking at a full team, quality starts, 27th with the Rangers with only 39%. And you've got the Hurricanes who are at 54%, 9th in all of hockey. So I realistically say that this is going to be a high-scoring series, but I'm going to have to take Carolina in 3 because I don't really see a way that the Rangers can mask up their defensive problems. And Carolina really beefed up before the end of that trade deadline. They gave up a lot of draft stock and everything, and they still got a good, relatively good prospect pool over there. But they beefed it up, so they had the ability to do so.
I'm gonna go on a hot take here. I'm gonna go with the Rangers in 5, and I think that these teams are quite even as well, and their forward cores are decent, though I think Carolina might have the better one, but their defense, both teams, they're not good. And you don't even have to be an analytics guy to know that the Rangers defense is worse than the Hurricanes defense. And on goaltending, the Rangers, they got some good goaltending with Alexander Georgiev. I think that's how you pronounce it. Versus Carolina.
That's how you say it.
Oh, okay, good. Who has Peter Mrazek in that, who isn't hasn't put up the best numbers this season, but still worked out for them. And I think the Rangers, they're gonna be relying heavily on Mika Zibanejad and Artemi Panarin, who, in my eyes, and a lot of people's eyes, is a contender for the Hart. And could Carolina's defense contain Artemi Panarin? But other than Panarin and I guess Zibanejad, what else do the Rangers have on forward core that could spark the team? Sure, it's the playoffs, anything can happen, but Capo Caco hasn't lived up to expectations at all this year. He was originally my pick for the Calder. And could the Rangers see some offense from a guy like Jesper Fast or Pavel Buchnevich? I think that's how you pronounce it. But their defense is really gonna kill them in this series versus Carolina's really good top line of Svechnikov, Aho, and Teravainen. And I think that the Rangers are gonna rely heavily on good goaltending from Georgiev, and I think Panarin's gonna really have himself a series along with Zibanejad, and I think someone from the Rangers could surprise us and start going on a tear. So my hot take here is the Rangers are gonna beat the Canes in 5 games.
I gotta say, the only thing I would disagree with that is you have like Dougie Hamilton's coming back, Ryan Dzingel signed there, and Sammy Vatanen, who's on the top pair in New Jersey. So like all those guys are coming back. Your goaltending's gonna be healthy, and say like they're just so much like way deeper than the Rangers are. That you bring in Trocheck. So your 3 centers are Jordan Staal, Trocheck, and Aho. And now Dzingel comes back to, round out that middle 6 there. Their top line is just as good as anybody with Aho, Svechnikov, and Teravainen there. And then, Trocheck and Staal and Jordan Williams, or Justin Williams. Sorry about that. Justin Williams missed their game 7. Nino Niederreiter, like they're just a way deeper team. And the other thing, and what he's talking about is there's such a big coaching advantage that, Rod Brindamore is such a smart coach, such a smart hockey coach. Like nobody gives him enough credit for how smart of a hockey coach that guy is. He puts together great game plans, and he just makes his team. He gets his team on the same page, and they all play for each other. So I'm going to have to lean with Carolina. They've got the playoff experience. They've got everything going for them.
All right. I can see why you think that, but I don't expect to be right. But if I am, I don't know. I don't expect it what I'm going to do, but like I'm going to stick with my hot take with the Rangers in 5. So that's going to end our Eastern Conference playoff predictions.
We'll put a Twitter bet on that or something, right?
Yeah, we'll do that. And call me stupid or something all you want, but I don't expect to be right. I don't know why, but I have a soft spot for the Rangers. So I'll just go with them in 5. And before we move on to our next topic, I'm gonna plug in my laptop.
Maybe you like the Rangers because they're the GM that you want the Canucks to have, right?
Maybe. Maybe. I'm just gonna plug in my laptop before we move on to the next topic.
I can start it off if you want. Or that was the last series, though, right? Josh has stepped away, but next we're going to talk about Tanev and Stecher and who we're keeping. And this is another debate that's being sparked a lot on Canucks Twitter. You see everybody talking about this. So I'll get started on this. I think I got to keep Stecher if I'm looking between the two. You look at the defenses. You've got Tanev, who's completely aging, and he's entering his 30s. And read about trading his numbers this year, and they really just aren't even close to where they were supposed to be. That I have to lean with Stecher because he's just so much younger, and realistically, he's probably going to be in anywhere between 2 and 3 million, probably around the same as Tanev. But even if you keep Stecher, say Stecher's going to have to play with Edler on that second pair. You can move Myers up to the top pair because him and Hughes were, they worked relatively good together. we already know where I stand on Myers, but you're looking at, trying to create an optimal lineup. I really don't see how you can keep Tanev, because he's going to command anywhere from $2 to $4 million. He's not going to take a pay cut to stay here. There's already beef with the media about how much he wants. We'll say that with Newport and IMAC, but I just say, like, Stecher is just younger. He's more of a cost efficient guy. If you can get him anywhere, between I'd say $2 and $3 million. He's a guy that has consistently performed so much better. But I heard this on the radio today on 1040, is that the organization always seems to want to get rid of Troy Stecher, whatever it is. He consistently proves you wrong that he's another cost efficient, middle, top four defenseman. He's not perfect, but they always seem to try to find a way to get rid of him, and he's consistently proved you wrong. He's been better than you even expect it, but either some team's going to end up with a really good defenseman on a value contract, or the Canucks keep him, and I'm going to have to lean a Stecher over Tanev because of that reason.
Yeah, this is going to be tough because, for one, you would love to have both of them back, but that's obviously not going to happen. And Tanev is gonna want, as you said, $2 to $4 million, maybe even more. But I would honestly rather keep Stecher as well, because I don't know how much he's gonna want, but I don't think it'll be a lot, and it's gonna be another low risk, high reward signing. Stecher, he's had an up and down season, and he's a a very decent two-way NHL defenseman. Smart, he's mobile, and I don't think he's gonna cost as much. This may not age well, and not to mention he's from Richmond, but you really want to keep a guy like Tanev. Sure, he's got his injury problems, and he's not as good as he was 5 years ago, but the guy's an absolute warrior. The numbers tell you he is one of the NHL's best defensive defensemen, and you can see that because he can take the puck away in the corners. He literally throws his entire body to block shots. But how much is he gonna want? And if he wants a lot, I guess you're gonna have to let him walk. And I think Stecher is the cheaper option because his numbers, points wise, for example, they aren't as high, and I think Stecher plays a very good two-way game and is good on the second or third pairing. So I'm gonna go with Troy Stecher. And if I had to pick a new contract, maybe 3 years. Hold on, let me bring up what his current contract looks like.
It's like around like $2 million.
Yeah, maybe I go 3 times 3.
That's the thing. Like, he has to be. You can't bring him in as a bottom pair guy if you're going to pay him that much. Like, if you're paying him, he's staying as that. He's staying in the top four. Like, he's not moving. But the other thing I'd bring up though is Chris Tanev defensively he's been a tank since I pulled up his last 4 years. He's just really fallen off a cliff this year. And there's nothing to explain it. He's been below average. He's been below replacement level defensively. The last 3 years he was a tank, but defensively, he's playing 40 or 50 games and he's putting among the best defensive numbers in the entire league. But this year he's been below replacement level. He's been below replacement level on the shorthand on the PK there. That how can you expect him to really improve? Like, he's kind of hit his downfall, that by the numbers we're looking at, he's not going to improve. He's on the downhill fall of his contract. Is the same thing with when we were talking about signing Myers, is that he's not going to improve based on the numbers that we already know what Tyler Myers is. We know what Chris Tanev is. We know what Troy Stecher is. Troy Stecher is going to relatively stay around where he is, and Chris Tanev's going to fall, and it looks like he's kind of hit that peak where he's really started to fall. What is he going to look like next year? We don't know that. And why take a risk on a guy paying him that much when you can take the stable return you're going to get on Troy Stecher?
Not to mention Tanev, I believe he has turned 30 already, or he is going to turn 30. And,
yeah,
we all know what happens to players, especially defensemen, after they turn 30. They start to decline. And you already mentioned the numbers that he's already starting to fall off a cliff. And would you really want to pay a guy at least $4 million for a 30-year-old, a guy who's 30 years old, $4 million, that his game is declining? It's gonna be another bad contract. And I'd much rather go with Troy Stecher, 26 years old. His numbers have been steady throughout his career, so I go with Stecher. Much cheaper option and much lower of a risk and a high reward.
You talk about a guy also that so he was consistently anywhere between 1.5 to 2 wins of our replacement because he was so good defensively. And this year he's at 0.4. He's almost in replacement level, but because, he has actually decent offensive numbers playing with Hughes. So that's the only thing really putting him outside of below replacement level. And how much of that goes to tribute, how good Quinn Hughes has been this year. And you talk about all the injuries he's had, he's not going to improve based on where he is, and he's going to want more money than he obviously is making now. I just say you have to walk away from that. And as sad as it is, he's a fan favorite here. He's done everything for the city, but when you look at the long-term aspect of this club and how you're going to have the highest success rate, it's walking away from Chris Tanev because he's going to want too much money.
Yep, you got to think long-term here. Tanev, he's going to want, as we've mentioned, going to want a lot of money, and it's not getting any younger. And as tough as it is, you got to let him walk. But that's hockey. That's business. You might as well go with Stecher. He's entering, or he pretty much is in his prime, and I don't expect him to want at least $4 million, and there's no way the Canucks should give him at least $4 million. So I guess we'll come to a consensus. Stecher, he's gonna stay, hopefully. All right, Ty, do you want to go off on Jay Beagle now?
I can do that.
All right, go for it. You have all the info.
Okay, so I'm seeing this brought up lately that Jay Beagle is worth his contract because he's a good penalty killer. So we'll start off with this because I actually dove into this because I wanted to know actually is he actually a good penalty killer? And I'll gladly be wrong if he was. So I looked at his last 6 seasons or so, and that's we're still in his prime, and obviously he's declined since then. But I looked at it, and he's realistically only had 2 good penalty kill seasons. Obviously, he was a good penalty killer last year. He actually, he was above average, but he's only had 1 really good penalty killing season. That was in 2015. Outside of that, he's really had 2 absolutely terrible penalty killing seasons in 2017, 2018. So that's their cap run. So we'll leave that in perspective for how much he mattered. In 2014, 2015 with Washington, when he was 2 wins above or 2 wins below replacement level on the penalty kill. That's pretty significant. He's only really had 2 good seasons between 2014 and 2017, that area. Other than that, he's pretty much been replacement level. He's been terrible defensively, terrible offensively, but he remains this narrative that he's some good player. Realistically, you're paying him low end, I'd say middle tier to upper end third line center territory, and he's basically giving you replacement level value where he's probably anywhere from a league minimum contract. And I was looking at some of the athletic models about how much he's actually worth, and theoretically he's worth negative money because he's that bad. And this is a guy you're paying $3 million. And what happens when you need to put a winger on the top 6 so you can be a contending team, but you've got Jay Beagle as a 4th line center? You have to look at the long-term aspects of these things, that Jay Beagle was never needed for this team. he's a good locker room guy in the whole bit. That he's, maybe he's a great guy the whole bit. I don't care about that. I care about the long-term aspect of this team. And Jay Beagle really just puts a big block in the road.
And you want to bring up that thread? That
you can look at that if you want.
All right, I'm gonna react to it right now.
Go for a reaction. I sent it to you, right?
I think you did. No, that was this the one over 10.
That we'll get to that later. Yeah, we've had some interesting stuff happen.
I'll find it. So anyway, my take on this, I don't think the Canucks should have signed Beagle.
You were into him though before. Like, I remember that article I read about it. You wanted Beagle here.
Yeah, but on a cheaper deal, and I did. I was hoping he'd take like 3 years, but 4. What was that? Like 4 times 4? He's not worth that.
He's like, I think he's like. But here's the thing: you got to look at this. Is that how many guys? And Jacob Markstrom was even using it when he was debating. His agents looking at contract length. Is the Canucks only want to give him 2 or 3 years, but then you're like, well, what about Jay Beagle? You gave him 4 years, and he's entering his 30s. So why won't you give me 4?
Yeah.
Like, what can Benning say?
Yeah, he's a great locker room guy, sure, but the guy who is getting, how old is he? Like 30?
He's in his 30s. Like, he's just going downhill. Like, this year, he was one of the worst players in the entire league.
And sure, one could argue he's a good penalty killer, but this year, I haven't really been seeing it, and the numbers,
they don't back it up.
Yeah.
This was his out of the last 6 years. This was his 3rd worst penalty killing year of his entire career, and the only reason that it isn't his worst because he's obviously got hurt for a while here too. So I think if he was still healthy, he'd probably been worse. But he's replacement level, so that doesn't mean that it was his. He's in the 50 percentile. He's an average penalty killer. He's nothing special, and at even strength, we already know where he is. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I guess. Though he hasn't been good on the penalty kill, that's pretty much his strength. But at even strength, he's not good. And by the way, where is that thread?
I'll send it to you. But while I get into that, is the other narrative, I guess, that what is it? So Beagle, because he wins faceoffs, all of a sudden makes him a good penalty killer. I think how many studies that has pretty much suggested. Just because you're good at faceoff does not mean you're a good player. Like Horvat's really good at faceoffs, but he's not a good defensive player at all.
Yeah, you wouldn't. He's a good faceoff guy, but you wouldn't class him as elite. And we love Horvat. No hate.
I'm not saying Horvat's a bad player. He's still a second line center.
He's a decent second line center, but
middle tier.
But he's nowhere near like one of the best two-way guys in the league. He's nowhere near that.
And that's why I would want to, Pettersson. I just sent the thread, by the way. Okay. I want Pettersson to be, facing the top line, is because he's a much better defensive player than Horvat. And then all of a sudden you open up Horvat's offensive game, which, has obviously been the strong suit of him in his time in the NHL. He's been known as an offensive player with defensive weakness, but because he takes so many faceoffs, there's this hockey guy narrative that all of a sudden he's good at defense. But there's just how many studies have been conducted pretty much proving that entire theory wrong? Just countless amounts.
All right, I got the thread here. You said these are dark times in Canucks history. We're going to look back on them. And this person, not going to mention who it is, says it's an over-exexaggeration.
You can figure out who it is if you go through my Twitter, though.
Tanev's plays.
We're not going to call anybody out here, like anything else. We'll just say.
And this person says losing Tanev would be an addition by subtraction, and our cap situation isn't as bad as it looks, especially with the cap standing flat, just like 2013. Teams are getting at least one compliance buyout. Well, I hope we're going to get at least one compliance buyout.
And the thing is if it's a compliance buyout, you have to use it on Myers, but it's going to be used on Eriksson.
Yeah, I want them to use it on Myers, but there's no way they're going to.
I might even see them use it on Beagle, which would just be idiotic if you look at it that way.
Yeah, and then he brings up a bunch of charts. And
But
then
the thing is I'm pretty positive he has no idea what he's actually posting. He just posts a bunch of meaningless numbers that have like no predictive analysis at all. He's just like, oh yeah, look at this, look at this, look at this. But basically everything he's posting is just a bunch of nonsense.
and then you reply with losing Tanev is the right move. I'm just saying Benning is terrible with his lack of vision and cap management. And then the guy responds with, I think Benning has been great the last 3 years, barring the Myers contract. He did a great job to
Oh
get rid
yeah.
of Goodbranson
And
and Del Zotto's
threw back some
contract,
facts there.
and gets asses in return. He has improved a lot. I am optimistic about our future, and I just hope Benning stays away from free agency. Well, the last two sentences I have to agree with, but he's been great the last 3 years.
Yeah, you saw what I responded with, right?
Yeah, he responded with his last 3 years of
I
free
looked at his
agency.
3 years.
Oh my god. 2017, Nielsen, Gagne, Del Zotto, Vanek. I guess Vanek was the only one that.
But then he screwed every good intention he had with Vanek by
And then the
basically
trade.
trading him for
The
nothing.
trade. Oh boy, at least they got value out of the 2017 class.
But here's the thing: is you look at Vanek and like Vanek's like the perfect rebuilding deal. A guy you sign for a 1 to 2 year deal, and you trade him for picks at the deadline. But who do we get instead? We got UC Jokinen and Tyler Mott.
UC Jokinen, Canucks legend. And 2018, Schaller, Beagle, Roussel. Well, at least we got Toffoli for Schaller, but we're still unsure if he'll resign. Beagle, we already mentioned him. Roussel hasn't been as good this season as he was last season because of mainly
like Roussel was like, and I looked at it as Roussel was market value for how much you were signing him for, like that, and I thought like Beagle was like terrible based on how much he should have been signed for, but like Roussel, I looked at him and I didn't mind because that's relatively market value for what he was going to get. But since he tore the ACL, it takes a lot of his grinder mentality and the whole bit out. Is that injury really hurt him? I think at this stage of his career, if he was younger in the whole bit, I think he would have been able to recover at a better rate and probably still play his game. But you get later into your 30s or at least close to him, it's tougher to recover from those injuries and come back.
2019, Myers, Ben Ferland. And then
I'd say like, you go ahead and
he goes on with the trades. 2017, for Pouliot. Yeah.
Don't you remember? Okay, here's the thing about Benning always just goes for those guys that like were high picks that like he scouted, right, as good players, but like Pouliot basically panned out to be nothing, and that's the same thing with Myers, because you have like Pouliot and he's like, oh yeah, I'll just send like a 4th round pick to have a chance that this guy pans out in a different scenario.
And then 2018, Carconi for Levo.
That was a good trade.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with that.
Great trade.
Del Zotto for Shen, write-off. Oh, man, I wish they brought back Shen.
But like, it's a write-off because and anybody that argues about the 7th, you traded the 7th for a goalie later on because you couldn't fill out your roster. And so basically, you're and say it's a good trade, is you're trading Del Zotto, who was a terrible contract in the first place, for Shen. It's basically just trading 2 failed players for failed players. And Shen was fine bottom pair guy, but where's he now?
Last I heard, he was in the depth charts with Tampa.
He's not even playing though.
Yeah. Continuing on, he says, and the only real bad signing in free agency was Myers. Roussel is solid top 9 forward that adds a lot of grit to our team. Ferland is worth $3.5 million when healthy. He was great with Carolina last season, and Beagle literally
when healthy.
Again, Ferland when healthy.
That's the thing.
Remember the words when healthy. Also,
if he's healthy, I got no problem with that at all. Not even a question. Not even a question. Because he's awesome.
Also, 2 years of bad contracts are expiring next season. Then you respond with Myers is terrible. Beagle is among the worst contracts in the league. And Roussel's fine. Ferland, he can stay again if he's healthy. Then
that's the other thing is say that and I back up the Beagle is you have Beagle who's realistically brings absolutely no value. Maybe he's not worth $6 million, but like you look at a guy like Eriksson that he still brings a positive 2-way profile to this team, and Beagle basically brings nothing. So I look at it that aspect that Beagle's one of the worst players in the league, and he's making $3 million. That's pretty much like Sven Barucci territory, who's, in my opinion, is top 6 player still. So, and I'll still argue that Ben was a good contract because, I'd still say if Ben plays more on the right side, and most of the guys have said he plays way better on the right side, and the Canucks signed him and put him on the left. So is that him dropping off? It could have happened, but it's another thing is that was a good process deal, bad result, if that's the case.
And then he responds with, "Oh, Beagle is a liability on 5-on-5. He's very good on the PK. Is he though? Or PK
No.
literally runs through him?
He's not.
Is
I looked up this. I backed it up with the numbers. He's had like one really good season, and even during their cup run, he was like terrible on the penalty kill.
Biggs is key to a piece to our special teams. Don't know about that one,
Yeah.
Chief. He takes a lot of pressure off Horvat, who has already had insanely tough development game after game. He's only overpaid by $1 million at most. I don't know about that. I don't know about that one.
But here's the thing: is it doesn't matter because you can sign a guy who's good at faceoffs for less than $3 million, and
exactly.
Who cares if it's your choice to put Horvat in that deployment? And maybe Horvat wants that game, but who's to say? Here's the thing, and I'll look at this: is there's not much of a difference between 5% of the faceoff and 5% in a Corsi. So, say 45% Corsi guy is way worse than a 45% faceoff guy because, or relatively, between 50 and 45. There's not much of a difference because if you think about it, it's like, what is that? Maybe like 1 or 2 faceoffs a game that you lose compared to the other guy.
Okay, and you respond with his PK war, and then he responds with, "It's not just PK war. It's the amount of time Beagle spends on the PK and all the faceoff he wins. If you take Beagle out of the lineup, who takes those faceoffs in PK ice time? Sutter's injured all year, so that leaves Miller and Horvat, and Bo already
Miller would be a good penalty killer.
He would,
but nobody gives him opportunity to do it. Horvat is a horrible penalty killer, and we already know that. So don't put him out there. Put Miller out there. Try these other guys. Tyler Mott's a good penalty killer.
Yeah,
he just can't take faceoffs.
And then you reply with, again, just because you play on the PK doesn't make you good. And then he responds with, again, it's the special teams setup and defensive system. Beagle is key piece of making it all work. And even with his PK war, Beagle still does an above average job. Again, I'm not saying he's worth $3 million, but he's at best overpaid by $1 million. I'd resign him for $2 million any day. And then he shows off this penalty kill skaters network chart.
That makes no sense, whatever that is. I'm pretty sure that actually is your time on ice, so that means no correlation to actually being good.
Yeah, it's shared minutes. And then you respond with fourth line centers are not worth
penalty kill doesn't make you good.
Fourth line centers are not worth more than 800K. And then he responds, Beagle is not just a fourth line center. He leads all forwards in ice time and all that. And then he shows off the chart again, the penalty kill skaters network. And then
who's that? Who's that? Like Micah, like ineffective math? Like, I'm pretty sure that he would probably say Beagle's trash too.
And then Beagle led them all in forward differential by a lot, 7 save percentage, 8 in SHD, GAR.
Yeah, that was my favorite. That was my favorite response. He puts in a goalie stat for Beagle.
Wait, what? Wait, let me read that again. Oh,
he puts in the save percentage.
Save percentage, what? And then Tessa at Testicle76. So that's a great name.
Friend of the show.
Do you understand how those stats? Please tell me having the 7th best save percentage show Beagle is a good player. And then you respond with what they mean. Then you also say, for a guy who's making $3 million, I just prefer him to be better than the first worst war at not negative 1.0 and being top 20 offensively and defensively. And then he responds with, you don't even know what I'm trying to say. Beagle's position in the team is extremely valuable. Let's say you take Beagle out of the lineup and replaces him at center on penalty kill. Miller or Horvat, because Sutter is always injured. I go with Miller.
Like one of those guys. It doesn't matter because you don't need to pay $3 million to get an average penalty killer who wins faceoffs at a high rate. You don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. and especially Horvat is enough on their plate, and then you respond with anyone
Pretty
and
much
crickets.
anyone. It was a good debate. A good debate. I know that he took another L, but I don't think he's taken a W in his like existence of Twitter. But let's say that I don't want to be calling anybody out though.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with the guy here. Beagle, you could say he's pretty much an average or even below average penalty killer, depending on what
Sorry,
the
I'm not
numbers
laughing at you. I'm not laughing at you.
say, and he's good at face-offs. That's it. And you've mentioned that you don't have to be that good at face-offs to be a good penalty killer. And to say he's valuable on the PK, a key piece, I don't think so.
Okay, you ready to get into Virtanen next year?
Yeah, let's get into Virtanen. How much would you give him for his next contract? Now, this is a
Want me to
big
take
debate
this
on
one,
Canucks Twitter.
or do you want me to take this next one, or
Yeah,
is it all you
I've
now?
done most of the talking. You take this one.
All right. I mean, like, here's the thing, and I put this up. So JD Burke, 1040 and Elite Prospects was talking on the radio this morning, and he said, I mean, he wasn't giving legit comparables. He's just saying that relatively in the hockey market value, for 10 and for a 20 goal scorer in this power forward in quotes there, is probably going to get about $4 million because people value a lot of the stuff he obviously does. And I looked at this and I thought, like, he had a better season for the most part, but like how much of it came at the start of the season, and we really started to see him, tail off near the end, and he really wasn't. There were concerns that he wasn't going to score at all. Guy who's probably bottom 10 in wins by replacement on the team, mainly because of his defensive game. And his offensive game outside of the goals really wasn't anything special. Like, he's relatively replacement level player this year in that aspect. And he also, the thing is, like, I got to look at this from a full Jake Virtanen profile standpoint. I look at every year he's played. And when I look at a player's value, I like to look at their last three. Then we can kind of see, okay, were they lucky one year? Were they unlucky this year? Or, we kind of get a value of that 3-year sample size. It gives us enough games, pardon me, to determine a good value of a player. So 2017 wasn't anything special. 2018, 2019, he was legit terrible. He was like Jay Beagle level terrible. And this year he was obviously way improved, but how much that goes to attribute to, the 20 goals and the whole bit is there's nothing else really surrounding his game. And Travis Green didn't trust him at one point because he was so bad defensively. It's like he's one of those guys that he has all the talent in the world, but at some point you have to put that talent together. And you can look at expected WAR or whatever that was on the thread this morning. The difference between his expected wins by replacement, which were obviously good, is wins by replacement attempts to give you a value of a player compared to a completely average player. It tells you how many more wins you would improve by replacing an average player with, say, Jake Virtanen or Elias Pettersson. So if you were to replace an average player with Jake Virtanen, you really wouldn't improve that much. So I got to lean with, like, based on the 20 goals and the power forward profile, I would probably pay him anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5-ish. And I don't see anywhere, like, obviously, like, compared to the models that say he's worth 900K, like, I'd probably say he's worth a little bit more than that. Not everything is the numbers, as you say. Like, I heavily base a lot of things on numbers, but I'd probably say he's anywhere between 1.5 and 2.5. And I don't see how you can pay him 4 because he's given you, like, 2 years of absolutely nothing. And then he has this career year out of nowhere. But, like, you got to look at this from a 3-year perspective, that this is probably the Jake Virtanen we have. And can we expect him to perform at the level he performed at this year? Well, we don't know about that yet. But as Uncle said, I'm just going to give him a little – that was the tweet I was laughing at a second ago. I said this morning, I said, that Jake Virtanen needed to drive him to YVR. He said he's going to drive himself there and record on Insta Live.
Oh my god.
Good
Oh
old,
god, that was
good old
dark.
Uncle. I'm glad to have Uncle back.
Oh yeah, Uncle Elite.
Glad to have Uncle back. Love Uncle.
Yeah, I'm not giving Jake Virtanen $4 million. No way, no way. And this year, you could say was his breakout season. Was on pace for 20 goals, and had the season continued fully without COVID, he probably would have hit 20. He most definitely would have hit 20, and at least 40 points. But do you base off his next contract on this year alone? You gotta remember that, um, like he was just a 20-point guy in 17-18 and 18-19, and he's very inconsistent, especially defensively. He looks lost, and he makes all these mistakes. And he has a tendency to dry up offensively as well. But $4 million, no way. I'd go 2.5 max, and that's it.
What are you looking at? You want to take this way?
Yeah, sure. And
so, like,
sure,
he realistically only had, like, his best season was 2015, 2016. Actually had a good defense. He had a good defensive profile.
Yeah, he did.
And you've got this past season. He really was not anything extra special because I got the numbers now. He was 0.3 wins above replacement, so he's really not that much better than anybody really else that you're going to pay that much. But obviously, there's a little more to his game with the physical aspect and the whole bit. And if he's going to embrace that, then I've got no problem paying him 1.5 to 2.5 million.
Yeah, 1.5, 2.5 million. That's perfect. And many argue that. Actually, I've seen a few say he could become what we expected to be. What we expected him to be when we drafted him 6th overall. But can he keep this up this year? Next year? Can he consistently hit 20 for another 2 to 3 more years? We're not sure. And I think I'm probably going to be wrong, but likely going to spend most of his career as a bottom 6 pairing guy. Wouldn't make him a bust, but still not good enough for a guy you drafted 6th overall. And I doubt he'll become that top 6 power forward that scores a lot of goals that he was in junior. But to give a guy who was on pace for $4 million is not a good move. And you got to play it safe with a guy like Virtanen. We don't know if this is the start of something special or just another fluke year. So at max, 2.5 million.
And the whole Cam Neely comparables, right? It's like you're
that's-
picking like a one in a million guy, right?
I really hate the Cam Neely comparables. Sure, you can see the aspects, but it took 4 years for Cam Neely to break out. He spent 3 years with the Canucks. Then he broke out in his first year with the Bruins. Virtanen has been in the NHL for like 5 years, 6 years now. And do players break out in their 5th or 6th year? Not common. And I'm not sure if Virtanen will score 36 goals, then 40, then 50. And the game has changed for power forwards, and the game has changed in general since Cam Neely played. So I just really hate the Cam Neely comparisons.
Yeah, exactly. Really, there's nothing else I can add on to that.
All right, let's move on. Yeah, so it's June, and Monday is the 15th, and it's a infamous day here in Vancouver because it will be the 9th anniversary of the Canucks losing the Stanley Cup final to the Boston Bruins in that infamous Game 7, and we all know what happened afterward. So I just want to take this time to share our memories of that team, and let's just argue why we think that team should have won the Stanley Cup in 2011. Ty, you go first.
Okay, like obviously, I gotta ask you, like, where were you in that Game 7? Like, that was like, dude, like that was like that was like the first time like I ever cried about a hockey game. Like, I was just like so emotionally invested, and I don't care. I'll admit, I was like freaking crying because like it meant a lot. Like that team was like oh, like I had no control over it, but like that team was just, it meant so much to me.
Yeah, I was 11 years old, and I cried at the
Where
end of
were you?
Game 7. I was at home. The game was on my mind all day at school, and on pretty much everyone else's mind. The teacher was wearing a Canucks jersey. And when the puck dropped, when the Canucks came out to that U2 intro, there was no doubt in my mind that they would win. And the puck dropped. Bergeron scored the first goal. I was like, oh no, whoever scored the first goal wins the game. But then I realized, not realized, that's when I thought there's still a lot of time left. Things could change. But then they scored 2, then 3, and then the dagger with the empty netter. And it just hurt. And you know how people get heartbroken over like a breakup or whatever? I think this is the equivalent to that. And people tell me, "Oh my God, it's just a game. It doesn't affect you in any way." It's more than just a game, people. That team meant everything to me. That team was good. Statistically, they were the best team in the league. They were unstoppable, and it all fell apart. And it still
That
hurts.
and it's just like that team should have won. Like I've heard BX talk about on podcasts. He says that is the most nervous he's ever been for a game. Like outside that Chicago game, the Game 7 they had before that,
Yep.
and that was like he said, like that was the most nervous they've ever been. Like he just was like
I don't blame him.
nobody wanted to play. Nobody wanted to play because they were that nervous. Like they said like they should have beat Boston, but it's like you look at that team, how many injuries they had, how many like he had Kessler who was like
He
pretty
was
much
playing
like
hurt.
he was never the same because he had all the hip and back problems, right?
Yeah,
He had the hip problems.
Edler played game 5, 6, and 7 with a bunch of broken fingers.
Broken hand, basically.
Yeah.
Like, and you talk about the Sedins who had Henrik Sedin was having back spasms the whole time, and I had those the last year of football. They freaking hurt because you don't know when your back's gonna seize up.
Yeah, and you know what? Really, the thing that really hurts is the Canucks were the highest scoring team all year, and they only scored 8 goals in that 7 games against Boston, mainly because Tim Thomas was just so darn good.
Yeah, and you look at it, it's like that. Like, and we're going back to injuries. Is that let's say Mason Raymond broke his back on a questionable hit.
Yeah, and I still
And
salty
like
about that.
that guy was one of the most. He drove possession. He did everything. That's a guy you need in your top 6 to win a cup.
Yeah, and
And you look at that team though;
love that guy.
they were so damn hurt, and they still pushed it to 7. I think if they played Tampa, like I've heard Canucks players talking about, they said if they played Tampa, they would have beat Tampa regardless of how hurt they were.
Yeah, and my God, I can't believe it's almost been 9 years and almost a decade since then. And yeah, it still hurts. It's still painful. You know that office quote Dwight Schrute says, "Will I get over it? No, but life goes on." That's pretty much how I feel throughout the 2011 team. Life goes on, but it still hurts. And that team should have won that cup. And they probably would have been the best, if not the best, team to win the Stanley Cup in the salary cap era because they were just so good. And Mike Gillis and Lawrence Gilman, they managed the cap well the summer before. And I think there was
But
an
you
article.
talk about like that
Yeah, I go
team.
first. Uh, yeah, I think we're having some technical difficulties. Oh yeah. What was I gonna say? Yes. There was an article a few weeks ago, I think by Steve Simmons, and he called them the Canucks the best team not to win the Stanley Cup. I agree. That team would have been one of the greatest teams of all time had they won. But oh man, I'll never forget like the hype the city had during the run. The Canucks logo was everywhere. People were wearing their jerseys to work, to school, car flags. People were noisy when the Canucks scored goals. I remember after Game 5, it was so loud. The parade, I bet it would have been epic. The parade would have been like the biggest gathering in Vancouver's history. I can still see like the Canucks holding the cup with blue and green ticker tape, floating down the streets of Georgia with like a massive crowd, much bigger than the Olympics the year before, and unfortunately never happened. And it was planned too, but I could honestly go forever how the Canucks should have won the cup in 2011 and how much it hurts. I cried myself to sleep that night while the city burned. And I just hope one day that the Canucks get back to the final and finish the job this time, because I do not want to go through that pain again. Because until I end up dating someone that dumps me, is probably the biggest heartbreak of my life.
Yeah, it freaking hurts. Like, you just can't even think about that. Like, that series. Oh
my God, yeah. And I've been told to get over it. I'm not gonna.
No. Until they win a cup, no.
Until they get back to the finals again.
Hopefully it's a different result.
Hopefully. And I've got a bunch of people in high school saying, oh, there was no way they were going to beat Boston. I was like, are you high?
No.
Did you look at the numbers? You know how good they were? They were the best team in the league. And they were from what I remember, they were the favorites to beat Boston. A lot of analysts predicted that the Canucks would win in like 5 or 6. It's painful. It hurts. It's still painful. Let's move on. All right, let's move on to some soccer talk. And I'll handle this one. So on the last episode, I discussed Chelsea. They're pretty much going to sign Timo Werner, and they could potentially rack up another young star from the Bundesliga. His name is Kai Havertz. He plays right wing and right midfield, and he plays for Bayer Leverkusen. No, I wouldn't say mid-table, but top 4, top 6 team in the Bundesliga. And he's 20 years old, and he's only going to get better. He can score goals. He crosses the ball well. He knows how to make good passes. And they could potentially be signing him for at least 70 million pounds. Don't know what that is in Canadian numbers. And I think that would break their transfer record, because their most expensive signing is their current goalkeeper, which was about 70 million pounds, which I think was a bit too much. But if Chelsea could sign Havertz, then they're on their way to becoming the Chelsea of old, the team that would win titles, the team that would go deep in the Champions League. And this could also rule out Jadon Sancho coming to Chelsea. It was fun to dream about, but oh well. We gotta stick to priorities here, and Chelsea already have enough wingers. Werner has been signed; he can also play the wing. Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic, Ziyech, who was recently signed. They got a lot of wingers already. So, and I think Sancho's likely going to go to Manchester United, so they can have him. And if this deal goes through, and Chelsea signs a decent left back, we're back, people. Watch out, Premier League. And moving closer to home, the Whitecaps are going to resume their season, and they're going to be playing in Orlando, just like the NBA. And they're grouped up with, I believe, Seattle and Dallas, and I think Portland too. Let me look it up.
I haven't even looked at the soccer, so this is all you.
Yeah, I know. I'm just looking it up. Yep, they're going to play Seattle in like a World Cup style tournament where they have group stages, and then It'll have a knockout round, but all in Orlando. And from what I've heard, the players will be tested before they leave. They'll be tested when they arrive, and they'll be tested like every day, or at least every other day, and before they play their games. And Orlando is also going to be the hub city for the NBA. And I'm not sure if the Whitecaps could stack up against a team like Seattle. Oh, they're playing Seattle, Dallas, and San Jose. But I could see them getting out of their group, but not too far into the playoffs. Ty, you have anything to add?
I'm not. I don't know much about soccer.
All
I'll
right,
say that.
that's fine.
So that's all you.
Let's move on to some pop culture. The PS5 was revealed yesterday, and as well as some games. We got New Hitman. I love the first two. Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man. The first one was dope, but this one is centered around Miles Morales. And the design of the PS5 has been memed already. Like, people say it looks like a binder. It looks like a stadium. I actually think it looks cool. The controller looks very nice. But the event started off with Rockstar Games, and I did not expect them to make an announcement. Now, for those who don't know, Rockstar is the company that makes Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, Bully, Max Payne, and a bunch of other great games that I love to play. And I did not expect them to make an announcement at all for the PS5 reveal. But when I was watching the stream, I saw the Rockstar logo, and I couldn't believe it. I was thinking, oh my god, they're going to announce GTA 6? No way. But then it cut to some GTA 5 footage, and it turns out they're going to remaster or remaster GTA 5 for the PS5, which includes more online content. Way to play with us, Rockstar. Like, come on, the game GTA 5, I still play it. I love it. I honestly don't really play online that much, but I prefer the storyline. It's 7 years old, and online has turned into a cancerous lobby full of 12-year-olds and oppressors and griefers. Make something new. Continue the series. Don't just stick to GTA 5, damn it. Just move on. Move on. Stop milking a dead cow. Like, we want GTA 6. I don't care when it's coming out, but I don't care if you're still making it. Just move on. Like, Rockstar, you took a huge L. Like, you had us all hyped up for like a microsecond and then just disappointed again. Like, seriously. The game's 7 years old, for crying out loud, and you're milking online content. You know what would have been better than more online content? A story DLC. Like what they did with GTA 4. And I do hope that Rockstar announces something in the future, and I hope to get my hands on a PS5 and GTA 6 when it eventually comes out. But by the looks of it, we could be getting GTA 6 for the PS6, 7, 8, 9, 10 onwards. So I just hope GTA 6 doesn't become another Half-Life 3.
Yeah, I'm just hoping. I mean, like, I don't play it too often, but I mean, it's one of those games that's just been around forever, and it's like make something new at this point. But I'm pretty pumped. I want to see how the football and all that stuff is, because I'm a big Madden guy. Obviously, I want to see how that works out.
Yeah, they revealed 2K, but with more sweat equals more
I don't
realism.
even think the 2K like looked that much better. Like the guys look more realistic, but like the motions and stuff didn't look very realistic at all.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some music here. And saw a tweet like a few days ago saying, which bands or music artists do you think are overrated? And Ty, I'll let you take the floor with this one first.
I respect a lot of different music, so like I don't know who I think is like overrated, but like give me a few, and I'll tell you overrated or underrated.
All right, I'll start with the rap game, Drake. I think Drake is massively overrated.
Oh my.
Yeah, like I hear him everywhere. Like he's the best Canadian rapper, the pride of Canada. Like don't get me wrong, I love his earlier stuff. The best of I ever had is one of my favorite songs of all time. And but he puts out an album like every year. Like take a break. Like how do you have the time to record an album like to make an album every year? Like don't you have touring and like press tours and all that, like interviews? And does he even write his own songs? I'm not even sure. We're not even sure. Uh but I also find Ed Sheeran overrated. Like I just can't stand hearing him everywhere I go. Like don't get me wrong, some of his songs are good. I like his Divide album, but if I swear to God, if I hear an Ed Sheeran song one more time, I'm gonna lose it. Like I go to the mall, I hear Ed Sheeran. I I go to well at my old job, they play the radio sometimes before we get on our shift. I hear Ed Sheeran. Once they even played him twice in a row. Um, in school, some kids blast their music. What do they blast? Ed Sheeran. Like, sure, you could argue, oh my God, you think they're overrated because he's overplayed. Well, that's what makes him overrated. Sure, I respect his talent. He's a great lyricist. He he's a he's a great songwriter and he's a good singer, but I'm just sick of hearing Ed Sheeran songs everywhere I go.
Yeah, I mean I can't. I don't like hate anybody. That's the thing. Like I don't know. Like I hate Kodak Black and
Yeah,
like
yeah, I can't stand
those
him
like
either.
annoying rappers. Like outside of that, like I don't hate a lot of music, but like I hate. Oh, the other one is who's that guy that had just on Drake? Playboy Cardi. He annoys the hell out of me.
A lot of people I know like
Those
him.
I don't know. Like they just annoy you. You can't understand anything they say. There's no
Yeah,
meaning to the song.
yeah. I don't know why. A lot of people I know and people I see on Twitter like love Playboy Cardi. I listen to a few of his songs.
No.
Nah, sure you do you, but I think he's overrated. Like, come on. Well, I'm a big rock guy, so I think of a lot of rock bands that are overrated. U2 is one of them. Sure, I love Where the Streets Are of No Name. That's the Canucks playoff intro song. But uh, it's just most of the songs, especially their newer stuff, are just boring, watered down, like stuff you'd listen to at the dentist's office while getting a root canal. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the Joshua Tree album, not because it has my name on it, but because it's a perfect album from start to finish. And U2 isn't even the best Irish band. There's a band I love called the Pogues. They make like folk, punk, Irish tunes. They're not together anymore, but they're the best Irish band in my opinion. And another rock band I find overrated is Tool. Like a lot of people I follow on Twitter are big fans of Tool, and I listen to a few of their songs. It just sounds like noise to me, and I don't see anything special. It just yeah, Tool's overrated. And I know what you're all gonna say. Oh my God, you think Tool is overrated? Says the Green Day fanboy. Yeah, I know. I just like Tool, like that song Sober. When I listen to it, I just want to turn it off. Like, nope, nope. Uh, and finally, I'll go with one more. Another band I think is overrated. Um, I'm gonna go with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, it just like the surf rock vibe and all that. You know, Stadium Arcadium. It's a good album, but it just doesn't appeal to me. Like I can understand why a lot of people like it, but it doesn't appeal to me. Yeah, you can argue You can tell me all you want that Green Day is overrated. They are my favorite band. Yes, I enjoyed their performance at the All-Star game last January. And sure, I can kind of see that. Some songs by Green Day are overrated, especially Time of Your Life. And
No.
I honestly,
No. That song is like one of my favorite songs of all time.
Honestly,
you can't say that's overrated.
Yes, I am a massive Green Day fan, and I say that song is overrated for many reasons.
Oh.
One, I'm sick of hearing it. Everywhere I go, I hear it. I hear dun 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 dun, and I'm like, nope. I just want to shut it off. And another thing, it gets played at every graduation, wedding. They played it at my grad breakfast, and I just, while people were smiling, I was just like, really? And people don't get the message of the song. Billy Joe Armstrong wrote that song to an ex-girlfriend, and he's being sarcastic. And what he's saying is like, I hope you had the time of your life, but what he's really saying is, I hope you go to hell. And
I mean, like, I like the song. I can't lie. Like, it's a good song.
I'm not gonna argue. It's a good song, but I'm sick of hearing it. The next time I want to hear it is at a Green Day concert because it's a much better song when performed live. And
Fair enough.
Point why I think it's overrated because it overshadows the rest of the album Nimrod, which was released in 1997, and I think that album is phenomenal. It shows Green Day experiment from that punk sound from Dookie and just add more ska, some more hardcore punk, and an acoustic song like Time of Your Life. But that album is so overlooked, like with a lot of other Green Day albums beside Dookie and American Idiot, which I love to death to this day. But yeah, before you tell me Green Day, you can tell me Green Day is overrated, but you can't tell me Green Day is bad. And that's how I'm just gonna end it there.
Fair enough. I think I pretty much got all my overrated guys out.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna get into the best and worst Twitter. All right, guys, this is going to be the debut of a fun segment called the best and worst Twitter, where me and Ty look at the best and the worst tweets of the week. Ty, you go first. I bet you have a few.
Okay, here. So I'll start it out with Best Mode, good old friend on Twitter, we'll say. This is a quite an odd tweet, we'll just say. So says, ready for a really radical opinion that's going to piss most people off. But if you think about it, it's 100% true. He says, maybe Hitler was right. Maybe one race of the people is how it get along. Because no other way it works. Everyone else is going to have some of her hate.
Oh my.
Really, the absolutely dumbest, most racist tweet I've ever seen on Twitter. I'm pretty sure he probably deleted it, and that's why it's a screenshot. But you're a fucking idiot, and pardon my language. Like, you're a fucking idiot, pardon my language.
Right,
again.
Yeah. Like, are you high? Oh, if you are, stay off the crack or whatever drugs you are, because Hitler was not right.
And had a bunch of mega bots retweet it too. Like, had like 418 retweets.
And not to get political here, but this should be like common knowledge that.
Oh, it's like hate. It's hate speech. It's not. It's not even political. If you think Hitler's
right, you need help, buddy.
Well, it's like hate. It's not. Yeah, it's not even political. It's just hate speech. Okay, here we go. A little more on the funny side now.
Yeah.
Chris Keane, another friend of the show, obviously, right?
Yeah, Chris K Films.
Says, when you've got prospect depth like the Canucks, you can afford to give up a couple mid-round picks. But beside, after the fourth round, it's a crapshoot picking anyway. I don't value a fifth much more than an eighth as being an undrafted free agent. Here's the thing. I'm going to go off on this. Is the Canucks do not have prospect depth anymore at all, right? Because all their guys have pretty much graduated into the NHL. They have not actually drafted very well outside the last couple rounds. Top of the draft, I would say. They really haven't drafted really well. And the other thing, obviously, is it's a crapshoot picking in the entire draft because NHL prospects develop at such a random rate. There's nothing predictable about drafting. So it's just as much of a crapshoot as the second round as it is in the 6th round. That's why you want to maximize your opportunities at getting an NHL player by maximizing the amount of picks you have in the draft.
No argument there. No argument.
Okay, here we go. Andy at Nucksfan1994. Go another good friend of the show. He says, all right, let's just see this one. I don't even know the context of this one. I think it was about George Floyd's death, which obviously is very wow. He's not dead. He's a crisis actor. Also, former jailbird and porn star.
I think I lost a few brain cells hearing that.
I think it was some mega bot.
Oh boy.
We got another.
I really hate the whole crisis actor theory. Like
that, it's just dumb. It's just
people
dumb.
Put that with like 9/11 and all that. It's just stupid.
Nothing I can not. Those are the people you don't argue with because there's no point.
I'm not even going too much into that because, yeah, I don't want to talk
it's
about.
Just there's nothing you can do, and there's like guys that just you lose brain cells. Like there's no point in debating with them.
Yeah.
Okay, a little more of a fun one.
I don't. All right.
Oh, you finish your bro. I'm not gonna over.
You you still gonna go?
Yeah, sure. Says, I wish we re-signed Nick Dowd. The guy says, this is the shittiest take I've heard all year. Okay, look at Nick Dowd's contract and his performance, and compared to Beagle's contract. Who would you rather take? A guy that's making league minimum salary or $3 million for a guy that's on a cheaper contract playing way better?
Dowd. I 100% take Dowd.
Totally, right?
And he's, from what I've heard, he's the Capitals' best face-off guy.
Oh, he is, and he's a way better penalty killer than Beagle too.
Yep. So,
okay,
I'm gonna go with mine. I'll start off with a hockey one.
Oh, I got one. Got a couple more. More. Chris K Films again. It says, "Have a good day, Chris. Solid debate. It's clear we're in total disagreement here. I'm making a guarantee here that I'm saving this tweet, and the Canucks will surprise somebody and have a cup contender in 3 years from now."
I hope that person is right, though.
Obviously, we hope, but like, what's the faith that you have in this management to put together a contender when they can't even tank correctly?
Yeah. I just hope that person is right, and I would love the team to be a contender within the next 3 years. They could. You never know, but not sure.
Never know. David Quadrelli. Just search Triamkin and hit the latest. You'll see some absolute doozies on there.
We'll say that for next week.
That's we'll just see. Like, if you want Triamkin here over, like, you pretty much already have him in Myers. So, like, there's no point in anything. Wayne King, best. That an anthem is my tweet that says an anthem should never be played at a sporting event. Gets too political surrounding that. So outside of the Olympics, no need to pay it. No need to play it. Says worst. Said it's a tweet of me comparing or asking who is it? Lorionov should be the Canucks president. Says Vancouver Messier or Oilers Messier when he's comparing Podkolzin. I'm not even going to pronounce it. Podkolzin. That's it. Podkolzin to Messier, and I said Vancouver Messier or Oilers Messier. So that means that Horvat's obviously giving his captaincy up, right? Like, just after 2 years in Vancouver because we have Messier coming here.
Yeah, and he gonna cause some stir in the locker room.
Don't worry, how Jay Beagle would take care of that.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll go with mine now.
Last one. Sorry,
sure.
Last one.
Sure.
I had a very long list. I had to get him in though. Good old friend of the show again. The guy that was talking about let's just say Beagle being a good player. Says, or we already went over that tweet. It's basically talking about how the only bad free agent signing was Myers. End of story.
Louis Eriksson exists.
Exactly.
All right. Here's some of mine. So, comes from a thread from Daily Hive sports editor Rob Williams, Rob the hockey guy. He said he enjoys the NHL news coming from Dr. Bonnie Henry and that they should let her announce the Stanley Cup this year, hand out the Stanley Cup this year, and let her announce trades at the draft too. Then David Quadrelli host of Canucks Convo, friend of the show, and Canucks Army managing editor, says she would have been able to keep Canucks fans calm when the Miller trade was announced. And here's the kicker. Rob composes a tweet of Dr. Bronny Henry announcing the JT Miller trade last June.
I missed it.
I've read this in Dr. Bonnie Henry's voice.
Oh, great.
It says, "We have a trade to announce. Now let me be clear. This involves a ticket that is lottery protected for at least 1 year. Also keep in mind that the Canucks have a good young core. This is a stressful time for fans. Please be calm and kind, especially on Twitter."
So she's the perfect person to defend Benning. Like,
yeah, she
just keep everybody calm, right? No fights at all.
Yeah. Well, we definitely needed her for that because that day was just brutal on Twitter.
Bonnie Henry's welcome to Canucks Twitter now.
Yeah, I don't know if she has. I don't think she has a Twitter or any other social media, but props to Dr.
She's welcome on Canucks Twitter. Just like Luongo's part of Canucks Twitter.
And she should drop the puck when fans are allowed to return for the first Canucks game. She should definitely do that.
Without question. I don't see anybody else. Like, without question. Sorry.
Right.
Like, not even a question.
Here's a cursed one. So there's this Twitter account called EDP445 Burner, which is the burner account of the famous YouTuber, Philadelphia Eagles fan, EDP445. And EDP stands for Eat That Pussy 445. And oh my god, this is so cursed. EDP, he's known for being loud, obnoxious in his videos, whether it's about the Eagles or him failing at getting a girl to like him. But in some videos, he exposes himself a little, maybe a little too much. So EDP445 Burner Clips posted, "What the hell, Sony? Hashtag PS5 reveal," and photoshopped the stream and put a screenshot of a video where EDP445 shows his full bare ass on there.
Where'd you find this stuff?
I don't know. I followed the burner account because EDP445 is one of my favorite YouTubers.
Nice, hilarious. I'll give him that.
But why did I need to see that?
I'm not even gonna look it up.
Yeah, don't even. I'm not even gonna show it on camera here because it's so cursed.
No need to. No need to. Right? No need to.
Okay. And here's another one from I Am DJ Live, who said, "Defund the police and let's fund this instead." And it's a map of high-speed rail in the United States, and it just looks beautiful.
It does.
One can dream. Could you imagine taking a bullet train from here to Seattle or Portland? Or even the map even shows the line going all the way down to LA or even San Diego. Screw flying. We're taking a bullet train.
It's like 200 miles an hour, isn't it?
More. Some in Japan can go 300. But I don't know. It's still a pipe dream. Because the U.S. obviously spends more money on the military rather than infrastructure, but one can dream. Hopefully this thing will become a reality before I'm dead, so I can write it as an old man with dementia or something. And then here's another one. You know how NASCAR, like in the whole Confederate flag thing, where one of the racers drove with it or something like that? So Not So Wise Broad screenshotted a tweet, actually a series of replies, saying, one that says, "Here before these people who are against the move," which is a bunch of people with sunglasses in their car. You know, those people. And then there's a tweet below it saying, "This is the final straw. I've been going to NASCAR since the 70s. Yada, yada, yada."
Oh, I saw this one.
And lo and behold, he is one of the guys. I don't know if I could.
He's actually one of them. He's actually one of them.
You can't make this stuff up, people. Lo and behold. Oh boy. What else do I have here? I have so much.
Pick the best ones and we'll get into questions.
Yeah. There's one from Content King saying things will go back to normal in July. July shows a giant chicken at the beach. Well, with the way things are going, that might as well happen. Or the Borg from Star Trek might as well invade. Who knows?
Yeah.
Here's another one from Free World for Free People. Italians be like, no, we got Columbus. We won't have any Italian heroes. Like, bitch, Mario and Luigi are right here. Or they. Yeah. I have to 100% agree. Mario and Luigi are Italian heroes. There's a few more here.
We'll get into questions if you can't find any more.
Oh yeah, there's a Oh yeah, one. Here's a shot of Elliot Friedman and his new beard.
Oh yeah, he looks like Joe Thornton, doesn't he?
Yeah, it looks like he's been living in the woods the last 6 months.
He looks like a non-ginger version of what's that guy? Yukon Cornelius from Rudolph, like that guy. That's what he looks like.
Yeah,
but he does. Obviously, he's not redheaded. So
yeah,
but that's like what the beard looks like, right?
Yeah. Here's another one from Grady Sass of Bar Down. He screenshotted a tweet of a guy saying, "You forgot to add liberal snowflake dick sniffer to the profile description, dummy." And then he puts a description with, and then he blocked me. Some people. And I'll end one with from Juno the Leafs. It has a picture of Caillou in a police uniform driving a car, and then the caption is, excuse my language, absolutely fuck Caillou. I have to agree. I like that show as a kid, but I really regret watching it.
It's so terrible. Like you think about what you watch, like.
Yeah,
like,
I watched a lot of great shows as a kid, but that show I wish I never.
Absolutely terrible, and it's just like he just like whines like the whole time. It's just like you're just like teaching your kids just to, like, whine to get their way.
And that pretty much explains all my whining when I was a kid.
It's pretty much encouraging it.
Yeah, and I wish my parents never let me watch that. And I'm not going to let my kids watch that when that happens. But we'll take another break, and we'll head into question period. All right.
Whatever.
It's time for question period. And Ty, let's start us off, because we got a lot of good questions today.
All right. Got a question from Malcolm, fellow podcaster. What bottom six forwards can we replace our overpaid plugs with in free agency offseason?
Good question. Because
okay, so who do we got? Who do we got coming off the books soon though? Like, realistically, I think I wouldn't mind to. I was looking into this a little bit. It's kind of tough to figure out which guys are going to be let go and which guys are like undervalued in that aspect. But I don't see many of our overpaid plugs getting. There aren't a lot coming off the books that would come here on really valued contracts.
Yeah, and not to mention there's a possibility of compliance buyouts, but
yeah,
I assume Malcolm is asking, like, in a perfect world, let's just say that guys like Beagle and whoever's in the bottom, and all the guys in the bottom six just went poof. They're gone.
I would just, well, here's the thing is that you've got, like, you just got to do your homework. Like, I really haven't,
but I'm looking at the free agent list right now.
Okay, if you do your homework and stuff, you can get some really good value deals in the bottom six because you know which guys are undervalued. Because like a guy like Josh Lego has like absolutely no market value, but like he's like an absolute like just god as a third line winger. Like if you do your homework, like you can really do well as in a bottom six, and then all of a sudden you open yourself up to sign that guy to put you over the top. We won't get into whether or not I think the Canucks have done that, but
yeah, but would some bottom six guys like to come here on like 2-year contracts worth like $1 million a year per se? I don't know, but
that's well, it's if you do your homework and you figure out which guys want out, right?
We have to admit, Malcolm, we haven't done our homework with this.
I mean, it's a good question for next week. Like, I want to do my homework on this because.
But I'm taking a look at the list right now for free agents. Alex Galchenyuk, who plays bottom six with Minnesota, is a
But
free
like,
agent.
how much is he going to
How much
cost?
is he going to want? Because we're not paying him 4x4.
Because realistically, like a guy like Galchenyuk is going to be way more than like what you want to spend on a bottom six.
Yeah.
Realistically, for bottom six, you kind of want to like keep the contracts under like 1.2 ish at that very max, and that's like a really good, unless it's obviously like a third liner.
Yeah, Galchenyuk
I'd
plays the
spend
third
more.
line.
So, but like realistically, he's going to come here and he's going to play in the same spot as Gaudette, and like you're not letting Gaudette walk.
Yeah,
really.
we're not letting.
Like,
yeah.
like
else?
you say, like Gaudette's like 1.5 probably. I'd probably feel good paying him about that.
Yep. Derek Brassard is also another one.
He's got weird. Like
he's
had
weird
like
guy.
Good seasons and bad.
Yeah.
Because like, I wouldn't mind him, but like again, like he's probably going to want anywhere from 2 to 3 million. So, are you willing to pay that? And you've got Virtanen. You've got Virtanen, who's probably going to get paid around that range too. He's probably going to be in the same spot that Virtanen's in. So, would you rather keep Virtanen or Brassard? And most likely, Virtanen's going to want to stay here. So, they're going to work something out.
Marco Scandella is another name.
He's on the defense, isn't he?
Well, I gotta look it up because Hockey News doesn't tell me the positions.
Yeah, he's a bottom pair defenseman, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I'm defenseman. My bad, people. Patrick Maroon is also another name, and
he's a really good fourth line winger.
Great,
but he's going to want a lot of money. Oh, I'd sign him in a heartbeat. He's a great winger, great fourth line winger. But he's going to want a lot of money.
Like a 1-year deal with Tampa.
Yeah, he's going to want a lot of money though, because like he's going to have the whole playoff experience and
I would sign
Stanley Cup winger. He's going to have like the whole argument going for that classic hockey guy GM that he's going to just talk him to sleep with the whole everything that he wants to hear.
Yeah, and Benning would be hard for a guy like Patrick Maroon for sure, but I don't want to give him like 4x4.
Keep him at like 1.2.
Like 1.2 for 1
year.
That's
totally. I didn't even do 2. I wouldn't mind that because he's such a good fourth line winger.
Who else is on the here? Kyle Clifford's also a free agent. Like him.
I would if he's around the 1 million. He's around 1 million. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Melker Karlsson. Wait, is he?
Nah. What was he? He's in the bottom 6 for San Jose. I don't know too much about him.
Really, I don't know much. We haven't done our homework again, but this will be fun to discuss.
I want to discuss this next week. This is a good question.
This is a good. Malcolm, we're gonna take your question to another level and make this a discussion topic.
Segment.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Tessa, 1A favorite sports movie. Mine is. I'm a big Friday Night Lights guy. That was one of my favorite movies.
Love that movie. It's a tough one because I love a lot of sports movies. But probably had to go between Moneyball and Mighty Ducks 2. But I love them both so much, I can't really decide which one would be my favorite.
I love Moneyball. And the other one I love is Slapshot, obviously, right?
Yeah, love that movie.
Love that movie.
It's a classic.
1B from Tessa. Favorite non-hockey sports movie. You go first. I got to think of this one.
Non-hockey sports movie. I'm a big movie guy, but the movie genre I love are those like Italian mafia films, like The Godfather.
Yeah.
Goodfellas. I love those movies. So yeah, Godfather, Goodfellas, Scarface, The Irishman was a good movie. Like any Scorsese film.
You can't go wrong with like a bunch of these like I don't know. That's a tough one. I can't think of anything. I'm a big Star Wars fan, obviously. So
Me too,
I wouldn't mind that one. That's not bad.
I love Star Wars.
Favorite non-hockey for a sports movie. So we already said like Friday Night Lights, Moneyball. So I guess like we pretty much went over it. Jasker. Sorry if I'm botching your name. Like we were debating this over the break how to say it. talk about ceiling and line mates when they join for Hoglander and Podkolzin.
Podkolzin?
Ceiling obviously is first line winger for both of them. I think
both can play the first line, but
I don't see much of more of a ceiling other than like a first line winger for like Vasily. Like I don't see him being like a lead player. He's kind of that guy that's like he's got a solid two-way profile, and scouts are saying you go on if you want.
Yeah, great two-way forward. Can be a pest on the ice. He's a guy who, like, he hasn't got much ice time in Russia, but if you give him more ice time, watch out. And he hasn't complained about his ice time, thankfully, because he doesn't seem that type of guy to complain. Because he mentioned in the draft interview that he'll just do whatever he's needed to be on the ice. And I think first line winger, I guess maybe elite. You never know, but I see him as a solid first line power forward in the NHL. And I really like the pick and did not expect the Canucks to pick him.
I was really good pick. I think that Hoglander has a higher ceiling than Podkolzin, but Podkolzin has a higher floor.
Yeah, Hoglander, just like Podkolzin, I did not expect the Canucks to pick him. I didn't even expect him to be there when the Canucks drafted him, and so I was very happy about that.
He's a workout freak. That guy's in so good shape, though.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, breaking news. I mean, it's nothing special, but I was reading this. Rick Dollywall, UFA Tyler Toffoli's agent. During the pandemic, we've been in touch with Jim a few times for a short time that Tyler has been in Vancouver. He's definitely enjoyed the city and the direction of the team. Maybe good news.
Maybe good news, but back to Hoglander. Yep. First line I can see, but it wouldn't be surprised me if it just turns out to be a second liner. He's got the great hands. He can score goals, but can he transition his game from Sweden to the NHL? And it's not going to be like Elias Pettersson's, where it was just seamlessly.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to play at least half the year in Utica next season before making the leap full time. And
the other thing is obviously, I think he's strong enough to make that transition pretty easily, at least. But he's a workout freak, that guy. And I mean, like, I don't know how fast is he though. That's the thing. Like, if he's faster, then I could probably see, a great spot would be that Horvat left wing when Pearson's gonna be able to resume.
Yeah, Pearson, Foley, and Hoglander.
Because nobody's taking Miller's left wing.
Yeah, no one's taking that. Yeah, so we project both Hoglander and Podkolzin to be top six guys. Podkolzin is more likely to be a first liner than Hoglander. So that answers your question. There we go.
Okay, last question, or I got two more. Andy, when did you become so hard in analytics? What resources did you use to educate yourself? Great question. I probably went into analytics. My cousin, Antique iPod on Twitter. Probably he was more into it before I was, and I never understood it. I'd say when Sutter, that kind of went down, and everybody was like, the analytics guys really hated the trade for Benning. I started to look at them, but I never understood them. I'd say this summer, 2 summers ago, I probably really dove into the understanding of them in the whole bit. It was also a big part in helping me out with that. Resources, probably Evolving Hockey, Jay Fresh on Twitter. He's more recent. The Canucks Army was actually one of the huge ones in terms of understanding it, because like they would give you the stats, but also explain what they're predicting, why everything's working out. Couple of good athletic articles on that. Those are probably it. JD Burke talking on the radio, obviously, gives some good insight on analytics, and Harmon Dial too with the Athletic. Those two were big parts in understanding the hockey analytics and actually pushing to want to understand them more. Last one. 5 things you love about this Canucks roster and 5 things you hate from
This
Snoop.
is from Snoop at Primetime Snoop. That guy's a legend.
Absolute legend. Like, he's legitimately like the sports Stockberry of Vancouver.
5 things you love about the roster. Oh, like what do you mean things? Like
Just players.
all right. I love Patterson, who doesn't? Miller, Toffoli, Besser, and Quinn Hughes. But of course you can throw in Horvat, but that's already 5. 5 things I don't.
Does management count as a roster spot though?
I don't think so.
Oh, come on! I was gonna put Francesco on there.
Things about the roster I don't love. The defense, well, it's not great. The bottom 6. The bad contracts. What else? People who think, wait, no, that doesn't count. Jay Beagle. Well, that's already ties into
Beagle. Yeah.
That already ties in, so I need 2 more. Something I don't like about the roster. The amount of injuries this team gets every year. I don't know if that counts.
Hey, it's all opinion. For me, or you got your 5, or you want to go back on another rant?
I need 1 more. Oh, I love this and hate this at the same time, but Louis Eriksson's face when, the memes.
Come on, it's not bad.
I don't know why. Or basically, Louis Eriksson's work ethic in general, like when he tends to disappear.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, you go with your 5.
5 things I love: Miller, Pettersson, Besser, Horvat, Hughes. Right in there contending for that spot is, let's see, I'm a big Markstrom fan, but I still wouldn't sign him. 5 things I hate: Jay Beagle, Brandon Sutter, Tyler Myers. Those are the let's just throw those in. Like those are the, I absolutely hate if you haven't been on my Twitter feed. And I'm not a big fan of Tyler Mott. I'm just gonna say it.
Right.
Not something that like absolutely like despise on the roster, but like people overrate him like a ton. Who else I hate? And I mean, like, I don't hate Louis Eriksson. I just hate the fact that his contract is basically screwing the Canucks.
Fair enough.
And if I could put management, obviously those guys would be 1 and 2 because of the reason that this team is so screwed.
Okay, we got another question from Tessa. It says, do either of you have pets? No, I don't, unfortunately, because I don't think my apartment allows pets, but when I eventually get my own place, I'd like to have a pet, but I can barely take care of myself, so.
I've got a English lab named Timber. He's 6 now. When I move out, I would like a Bernese Mountain Dog, like a Phoebe, like Stecher's dog. Like that's my dog.
Yeah, well, my grandmother lives nearby, and she has a dog named Bruno. He's a chocolate lab that's 10, and in a way, he's kind of my pet, but doesn't really count. But when I eventually do move out, kind of dog would I like? I'd like a Frenchie like Gus. But like dog like Phoebe would definitely be great. I love pugs, especially Riley Tanev. And
chunky dog.
Yeah, I would like a beagle, not Jay, the dog.
I mean, he is a dog on the ice.
Yeah, but yeah, I would like a beagle dog because I think they look cute. Do we got any more?
I don't have any more. It's all you.
Yeah, I don't think we have any more. So, yep, that wraps up today's episode. And apologies for all the noise in the background. And I hope the audio turned out great. Not great, but good or listenable. Feel free to let us know what we can improve on. I don't know why, but today of all days, my internet decided to act weird. And it just pisses me off. You sure Ty is hoping to improve his quality? I hope he can get a mic soon.
Yeah, for sure. I'll work on that really hard.
Yeah, you can buy one off Amazon, by the way.
I got one. Yeah.
We hope to have a guest starting next week for our guest segment, and of course, keep the questions coming, keep the tweets coming, and I hope this turned out well. Leave us a review on Apple or on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Joshua Ray 91. Ty is on Twitter at tparty21. It's also the same handles for our Instagram. The podcast, you can follow Avid Discussers at Avid Discussers on Twitter. Search up Avid Discussers on Instagram, and then you'll see our page there. And search up Avid Discussers on Facebook, and you'll see our Facebook page. If any of you still use Facebook, but
Yeah.
that wraps up this week's episode, and we'll see you next week.